and it was James Dean. And he said, I was in that restaurant, you couldn't get a table. And my name's James Dean. He said, will you come and join me?
Do you have any special advice for the young people who drive?
Take it easy driving. Life you might save might be mine. You know?
In the life and death of James Dean. He also knows a lot about the alleged curse on his car.
James Dean was a cultural legend whose brief yet iconic time in the spotlight came to an abrupt end when he died in a tragic car accident.
Now I drive on the highways, I'm extra cautious. Because no one knows what they're doing half the time, you know.
The details of that horrific event remain both perplexing and disturbing to this day. Many celebs revealed that they had warned James about not driving that fateful night.
Please do not get into that car, because if you do, and I looked at my watch, and I said, if you get into that car at all, it's now Thursday, whatever the date was.
Let's delve into the life and demise of James Dean, who took the entertainment industry by storm. The young actor epitomized a sense of restlessness, rebellion, and alienation that has never been replicated. Dean made his mark in a remarkably short period of time, dying at only 24 years old in a car crash. He made just 3 major movies as the unloved son in the family drama East of Eden, a defiant teen in Rebel Without a Cause, and a tough Texas ranch hand in Giant, and exploded into Hollywood stardom.
And if one of you spills a thing on my guest, you'll be transferred from my tables immediately, huh?
Robbie!
As you might know, he had a sullen sensuality, a swagger, a sense of daring, an aura of trouble, and a thoughtfulness about him. With his trademark t-shirt, jeans, and leather motorcycle jacket, his sense of style seemed eternal. James Byron Dean was born on February 8, 1931, in Marion, Indiana, to Winton Dean and Mildred Wilson. Dean's father left farming to become a dentist and moved the family to Santa Monica, California, where Dean attended Brentwood Public School. Unfortunately, several years later, Dean's mother, whom he was very close to, died of cancer, and Dean's father sent him back to Indiana to live on his aunt and uncle's Quaker farm.
James' relationship with his parents, like most aspects of his upbringing, was complicated. While he was incredibly close to his mother, nearly to the point of being smothered, his father was distant.
In 1949, Dean graduated from high school and moved back to California. He attended Santa Monica City College for a time, but eventually transferred to the University of California and majored in theater. After appearing as Malcolm in the school's production of Macbeth, Dean dropped out of UCLA. His first television appearance was in a Pepsi-Cola commercial, while his first big screen parts, uncredited, were in Fixed Bayonets and Sailor Beware, a comedy starring Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin.
Pepsi-Cola hits the spot, a big bottle and it's got bounce, 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 bounce. Go get Pepsi for the Pepsi bounce.
To make ends meet, Dean worked as a parking lot attendant at CBS Studios, where he met Rogers Brackett, a radio director who became his mentor, with the two also said to have been romantically attached. Later on, Dean moved to New York City and was admitted to the Actors Studio to study under Lee Strasberg, though the two were reputed to not have gotten along. Dean's career soared to new heights as he landed roles in popular 1950s television shows, including Kraft Television Theatre, Omnibus, and General Electric Theatre. His talent and charisma captivated audiences, and his performances garnered him a dedicated fan base, even leading to the formation of a high school fan club. Notably, his portrayal as a contemporary of John the Apostle in the 1951 film Hill No. 1, a story of faith and inspiration, further solidified his status as a rising star.
He is risen, John. This is the veil that was wrapped around his sacred head. Yet I do not understand.
He will enlighten us, Peter. Come, we must spread these good tidings quickly.
After a Broadway role in the short-lived 1952 drama See the Jaguar, Dean's success as an Arab boy in 1954's The Immoralist led to interest from Hollywood. Over the ensuing months, Dean starred in 3 major motion pictures, beginning with the 1955 film adaptation of John Steinbeck's novel East of Eden. Director Elia Kazan chose Dean after the actor met with Steinbeck, who thought him perfect for the part. Many of Dean's scenes in the film were unscripted improvisations. He would eventually be nominated for an Academy Award for the role, making him the first actor in history to receive a posthumous Oscar nomination.
Nominees for Best Actor are Ernest Borgnine in Marty, James Dean in East of Eden.
In his next film, Dean starred as the agonized teenager Jim Stark in Rebel Without a Cause, a part that would define his image in American culture. Dean then landed a supporting role to Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson in the epic intergenerational family saga Giant. He died before production was complete, with Giant ultimately released in 1956. Dean received an Academy Award nomination for this role as well, making him the only actor in history to receive more than one Oscar nomination posthumously. Before his passing, Dean had signed on to star in a movie called Somebody Up There Likes Me. The role was recast and given to Paul Newman, which helped the actor get a kickstart on his career. It might surprise you, but when Dean wasn't acting, he was a professional car racer. On the day of the accident, Dean was traveling across California with a friend, German mechanic and race car driver Rolf Witherich. The pair were on their way to a car race. Dean was an avid racing fan. In the twilight of the early evening, a car coming in the other direction turned in front of his Porsche, cutting him off. Dean was driving too fast and unable to swerve out of harm's way. He hit the other vehicle nearly head-on and died immediately, his neck broken. Not long before his untimely demise in a car crash, James did an interview with ABC interviewer Gig Young to help promote Rebel Without a Cause. Ironically enough, they ended up talking about safe driving, but ABC never aired the interview. He told Young, "I used to fly around quite a bit, you know. I took a lot of unnecessary chances on the highway. Now, when I drive on the highway, I'm extra cautious." Fans all over the world remember the talented artist who left the world too soon by raising awareness that he stuck to his teachings till his last breath. Jim was not driving like a lunatic at the time of the accident, and the accident was not his fault. He was actually going like 55 to 60 miles per hour, and there was plenty of light available for Turnip Seed to see Dean's car, and Turnip Seed left skid marks, which shows he did see Dean's car. Sure, Dean did get a ticket earlier that same day, but excess speed didn't cause the accident. Turnip Seed's wavering did. R.I.P. Jimmy, we miss you. Thank you for your legacy and joy you gave us. Thanks also for helping us feel less alone with our feelings. Despite the circumstances, many believe that James's car was cursed. In a 1977 interview on the BBC's Parkinson talk show, a somber Guinness recalled how he warned the young man that if he drove that car, he would face dire consequences. It all happened when Guinness and a friend were turned away from a packed restaurant in Hollywood, so they began to head elsewhere. Guinness said, "Then I heard feet running down the street, and it was James Dean." He said, "I was in that restaurant, and you couldn't get a table. My name is James Dean. Would you please come and join me?" At the time, Guinness had numerous film credits to his name and an Oscar nomination for The Lavender Hill Mob, so clearly Dean knew he was a big deal. Guinness and his friend agreed and started back. But before they went inside, Dean wanted to show off his new car. Guinness recalled, "There in the courtyard of this little restaurant was this little silver thing, very smart, all done up in cellophane with a bunch of roses tied to its bonnet. But after asking about the speed of the car, Guinness shocked Dean by prohibiting him from getting in the car because of an alleged curse. I said, 'Have you driven it?' And he said, 'No, I have never been in it at all.' And some strange thing came over me, some almost different voice, and I said, 'Look, I won't join your table unless you want me to, but I must say something. Please do not get into that car, because if you do,' and I looked at my watch, and I said, 'If you get into that car at all, it's now Friday actually, 10 o'clock at night, and by 10 o'clock at night next Thursday, you'll be dead if you get into that car.'" The photographer Phil Stern, who captured a famous shot of Dean with a turtleneck covering half his face, said, "Dean was very prescient because he structured his career in such a way that he passed away, which I believe was inevitable, in a way that precluded the possibility of people seeing him as a pot-bellied bald man." The Hollywood Reporter reported that to this day, people still visit the crash site and leave an assortment of tributes, including pictures, alcohol, and women's underwear. The spot is referred to as Blood Alley, due to the number of fatal crashes that still occur there now. Interestingly, Dean's demise was not the end for the victims of this specific car. You see, the remains of the car were auctioned off by the insurance company, and eerily, the engine of the Spider remained unharmed and intact despite the horrific crash. Passionate part-time racer Dr. William Eschred purchased the 550 Spider and stripped it down and used the 4-cylinder Spider engine in his Lotus Nanar chassis. As some Spider parts were specific to the 550, Eschried lent parts from the transmission and suspension to another surgeon named Dr. Troy McHenry. Both doctors then went on to participate in the 1956 Pomona race with the cars that had the cursed Spider 550 spares installed. Eschried, happy with how the Porsche engine was performing, disappeared mid-race when the Lotus suddenly lost control and crashed. Thankfully, Dr. Eschried suffered minor injuries in the accident, but the car was totaled. Troy McHenry was also involved in an accident that day when he lost control of the steering wheel and crashed into a tree. Sadly, Dr. McHenry passed away at the scene. Both accidents created a new buzz around the curse of the Porsche 550, with many saying the use of parts from James Dean's Spider meant they were cursed from the start. George Barris, the king of the customizers, tirelessly promoted the fanciful notion that Dean's 550 was cursed. Barris wrote in his memoir, "There was something strange about that particular car, a feeling, bad vibrations, an aura. Everything that car has touched has turned to tragedy." Barris claimed that he'd bought the car from Dean's family. When it was being unloaded in his shop, he said, it fell on a mechanic and broke both his legs. A short while after that, Barris reworked the car to display at safety demonstrations. He claimed it fell off a stand and broke a teenager's hip. A few weeks after that, while being transported, the car allegedly fell off the trailer and KO'd the truck driver. There were also tales about a thief who broke his arm while trying to steal the steering wheel. Apart from that, one aspect of Dean's life that never made it to screen was his alleged bisexuality. He was reported to have had flings with Marilyn Monroe, Pier Angeli, and many other actresses. Tomorrow Never Comes, the book by Darwin Porter and Danforth Prince, recounts the clandestine relationship between Dean and Marlon Brando. It's reported that their affair remained secret at the time in light of negative public sentiment for queer relationships in the 1950s. According to the book, Brando called Dean puppy dog because he spent hours outside his apartment desperately waiting to be invited in.
I hate him. I hate his face.
Harold, your mother was worried about you while you were away.
Yeah, she was worried. Don't make me laugh.
According to Stanley Haggart, a friend of James, Marlon used to play mind games with the rebel actor. But since James was 7 years his junior and worshipped the veteran actor Marlon Brandon, he would bear this ill treatment. This allegedly included the actor Brando compelling Dean to watch him be intimate with other people and forcing him to wait outside Brando's apartment for some S&M play. Haggart claims in the book, "I got the impression that Jimmy was engaged in a cat and mouse affair with Brando being the cat, of course. Brando seemed to be toying with Jimmy for his amusement. I think Brando was sadistically using Jimmy, who followed him around like a lovesick puppy with his tongue wagging." Fans all over the world believe that James was love-starved and traumatized due to his rough childhood, which manifested in his desperate taste for romance. James Dean was troubled, and you can tell the trauma of not only being bisexual, but being brought up, neglected, shunned, even heartbroken, just played a role in his demeanor. And all he wanted was a thrill, to feel alive, it seems. It's really sad. You can only hope that he got what to some degree towards the end. God bless him. Joel Thurm, a casting director, recounted behind-the-scenes accounts of wild, adventurous Hollywood homosexual hookups and parties. Thurm revealed that he attended a party in the 1970s when the majority of the visitors were gay. The gathering was planned to watch Boys in the Sand, the first full-length, big-budget X-rated film. During his visit, he recognized actor Rock Hudson. Thurm claimed Hudson indicated for him to join him in a bedroom. Thurm, on the other hand, couldn't act because he was starstruck. To add to that, giant film stars, James and Rock actually didn't like each other. You see, Hudson admitted in a 1983 interview that he didn't particularly like Dean, while Dean didn't appreciate Hudson hitting on him when he thought that Hudson had gone to great lengths to keep his intimate orientation hidden from the American public. Hudson's biographer Mark Griffin recalled in the Max documentary, Dean considered it hypocritical that Rock was maintaining this hetero facade in public while privately hitting on Dean. Griffin suggests that the lack of camaraderie between the two giant stars, James Dean and Marlon Brando, can be attributed to several factors. One significant aspect was their divergent acting backgrounds and approaches to their craft. Dean and Brando hailed from different acting traditions, each with their own distinct styles and methods. These differences likely influenced their on-set dynamics and interactions. The scope and themes of the film may have further accentuated the disparities in Dean and Brando's approaches to acting and their attitudes as movie stars.
You always have had. Why? Why? It's so easy to be friends with people. Look, man, why don't you just give Dad a chance? Why don't you show him that...
Apart from that, James suffered a great injustice in his teen years. Kevin Sessoms revealed that in a wide-ranging interview with Elizabeth Taylor, the famed actress let him in on a secret about Dean that she had promised she'd keep forever. Sworn to secrecy until Taylor's death, Sessoms revealed the hidden past of the rebel without a cause. Taylor said, "When Jimmy was 11 and his mother passed away, he began to be med by his minister. I think that haunted him the rest of his life. In fact, I know it did. We talked about it a lot. During Giant, we'd stay up nights and talk, and that was one of the things he confessed to me." It all happened after Dean's mother died in 1940. He was sent back from California, where his family had relocated, to Indiana to live with his grandparents. He was sent back on the same train as his mother's body. Known for his young rebel roles, Dean was actually a confused, somewhat angry and abandoned young man. A bit lost and without much guidance, Dean befriended a local Methodist pastor named Reverend James DeWeerd when he was around 11 years old. But the relationship had a dark side. DeWeerd had a strong effect on the teen and introduced him to things that would become big parts of his life later on, including bullfighting, cars, and the stage. You might be surprised to know that James liked to tinker around with his bicycle as a kid, assembling and disassembling it over and over again. In high school, he became involved in his school's theater group, yet the soon-to-be star had an even greater passion, driving. At the time, he was fascinated by motorcycle racing, although he didn't even have his driver's license yet. He told his school principal, "My hobby, or what I do in my spare time, is riding a motorcycle. I know a lot about them mechanically, and I love to ride. I have been in a few races and have done well." According to his family, Dean was prone to getting extremely engrossed and enveloped in certain activities. Even in the time leading up to his death, James Dean wanted to learn more. He had started learning how to sculpt with artist Pigot Waring and was constantly asking questions, to the point that Waring became frustrated. He wanted to know just about every single fact, idea, and theory that had been discovered by man clear back to the Stone Age. Contrary to many artists, the late star didn't really care too much about his appearance, even going so far as to show up to a formal luncheon with no socks or shoes and wearing dirty jeans. That wasn't just a one-time thing either. People who worked with Dean also said that he would show up to rehearsals wearing pants that were being held up with safety pins. Dean's most significant romantic relationship was with Italian actress Pier Angeli. The pair were even briefly engaged, and even though many didn't find it genuine, Angeli said in an interview many years after Dean's passing that the two had been deeply in love and inseparable, even making a comparison to Romeo and Aunt Juliet. Dean and Angeli may have been in love, but their union was doomed to a heartbreaking end. Angeli's mother didn't approve of Dean's behavior, appearance, or dangerous hobbies like car racing. There are conflicting reports about whether or not Dean was ready to commit fully to Angeli. After Dean finished East of Eden, he returned briefly to New York City to tie up some loose ends, only to be utterly devastated. When Dean was in New York City, the news broke. Angeli had gotten engaged to another man. The press ate it up, and when Angeli wed Damone the month after, they claimed that Dean watched the marriage from across the street, even revving the engine of his motorcycle during the vows. However, Dean denied the story.
It's no place for kids.
A minute ago, you said you didn't care if he drinks. He said a little drink.
You're tearing me apart!
While many believe that the love story between Angeli and Dean was embellished, one thing is for sure. Both met dark ends. Angeli divorced Damone, remarried, and then divorced her second husband as well. She would often say in interviews that Dean had been the love of her life. In 1971, the despondent actress took an overdose of substances and passed away at the young age of 39 years, coming back to James's life as an actor. You see, Dean was a method actor till the end. There's a pivotal scene in Giant where his character is supposed to give a speech after having a few too many drinks at a banquet. He went full method with it and had some drinks himself before shooting the scene. As a result, it was hard to make out his slurred speech, and it had to be overdubbed by another actor before its release. Dean knew that his dangerous hobbies, like bullfighting and car racing, were just that. He once made a joke that he'd never make it to see the age of 30, but it gets even darker. While discussing his penchant for fast driving, his Rebel Without a Cause co-stars all said that they expected him to get into an accident before the end of the year. James Dean is still remembered after all these years by his admirers. One of Dean's fans, Martin Sheen, said Dean's performance in East of Eden, which he first saw as a young boy the year Dean died, inspired him to become an actor. Sheen said, "All of his movies had a profound effect on my life, in my work, and all of my generation. He transcended cinema acting. It was no longer acting, it was human behavior." Jane Withers, who co-starred with Dean in Giant, said working with the sometimes aloof actor was the highlight of her career, but she had to get past his attitude early on. "He acted like a little kid, and when someone acts like a kid, I treat them like one. I didn't put up with any guff, and because of it, we had a very warm relationship." In contrast, Earl Holliman suggested that Dean's aloofness was a product of his desire to remain focused on work, which was commendable. Holliman claimed, "Jimmy was a guy who didn't care what people think of him. He said that wasn't important. What was important was what was on the screen." Whether it is his personal life or professional life, James Dean's whole persona has been shrouded in mysteries. Although Dean met a tragic end, his fans still wonder what he would have accomplished if he had paid heed to Alec's warning. That's it for today. See you at the next one. Goodbye.